Hello, I'm Gimlet. I'm sitting on one emerged part of our precious terrestrial globe. Would you guess the city where I'm located? I can help you out with free clues. Despite a huge fire that ravaged and disfigured, the city knew how to rebirth and still possess today a typical architecture suitable for art and expression. Its style, Beaux-Arts, has been dedicated throughout the world thanks to the Universal Exposition in 1893. Up high for better contemplation, it's one of its particularities. Come then is history, marked by the underworld. Crooks and gangsters ruled during 7 years in what became the biggest mafia in this time, bringing within the city corruption and death because of the shooting and the killing perpetrated. Finally, is culture. Standard of what people call junk food, typical local dishes are among the most rated worldwide cuisine. Molecular gastronomy, pizzas, etc. Classical music, improv theater, masterpieces, museum of reputations, outside representation of the good temperature, culture is queen in this metropolis. Did you find out? Well done! But are you sure? If yes, so you are real wanderings. For those of you who don't have it, you still have somewhere to go. Whatever it be, let's go together explore it. Wanderings, let's hit the road!
You might be right, we're going to the land of opportunity today, in Chicago. I think you have a better idea of its location rather than the one of Malta, am I right? But it doesn't matter, because you're completely harmless against me on my video. The city is located on the west side of the Michigan Lake, almost the core of the United States, Illinois State. Chicago is the third town the most populated in the US, forestalled by New York and Los Angeles. It's tallied up to 2.7 million inhabitants in 2016. By far the biggest city in Illinois State, followed just for information an unknown city Aurora with less than 200,000 residents. Furthermore, it is the second industrial center and the first agricultural raw material stock exchange in the world. Incidentally, where are set soya and wheat prices in the USA. The climate here is humid continental, hot summer with the heat rise from Mexico Gulf. Winters are for them cold, sometimes intimidating. Per year, it could fall an average of 97 cm of snow. Let's keep going with an anecdote especially destined to blaze your daily life. This metropolis is nicknamed Windy City because of its proximity with Michigan Lake, which shake the city with freezing wind during wintertime. But also because Chicago in the 19th century is the object of industrial rivalry with Cincinnati. Cincinnati, Ohio City, was known for its meatpacking to the point that we call her Porkopolis. Yet, during the 60s, Chicago surpassed its neighbor and stated loud and clear the same nickname, Porkopolis. Baseball games back then as today are very popular in the United States. Cincinnati Red Stockings made the city and baseball proud. The knavery of Chicago will go so far that they create White Stocking team just in order to beat Cincinnati. Nicknamed Windy City has started to appear in Cincinnati Sport magazine between 1870 and 1880. It appears at the end of the 19th century and sound at the same time the beginning of a dark era. I put you in the context. We are at Chicago, 1929. Mob is at its golden age, in particular since the prohibition of 1919 prohibiting distribution and alcohol sale under 0.5%. Other situation for mafia and people like Al Capone to work your way up and assert their authorities in the criminal community. In 1929, two mafia lead Chicago. The South Side, Italian predominance, led by Al Capone, and the North Side, Irish predominance, guided by Bugs Moran. Al Capone, fearful of the rising and the loss of power of the North Side gang, but also the attempted murder of his right-hand man Jack McGurn, ordered annihilation of the whole group, especially his boss, Bugs Moran. Mr. Capone, while exiled in Florida, made responsible Jack McGurn for this mission. This one gathered a team of killers, count for example George Ziegler, prosecuted among other things to the rape of a 7-year-old little girl, as well as Joseph Lordo and Fred Burke, the killer. Jack's plan consists to attract their opponents into a secluded place to shoot them down. Claims a meeting deep down the Carthage SMC garage located in Lincoln Park Quarter, where are invited Bugs Moran and his men around the so-called smuggling whiskey cargo supplied by the Purple Gang. Bait is on. Fake police raid were allowed to take off without any coercions weapons of the North Side Gang. Al Capone's men could then dispatch the rival gang with no resistance. 14th of February, 1929, 10:30 in the morning. 7 members of North Side were murdered by 4 men of Al Capone, whose 2 were disguised to take weapons off of their future victims. Only problem during the operation, Bugs Moran, North Side boss, was late. He saw the fake police car and thought either that it was a trap or the real Chicago's policeman. Capone's men believed that they killed him because another member of the gang was looking just like him. When the real police comes in the location, the only survivor of this slaughter is the German Shepherd of one of Bugs Moran's members. Police report conclude that the 7 men were killed by the discharge of 70 machine gun bullets and 2 gunshots. However, Bugs Moran sees his gang perish. He succeeds in keeping the control of his territory until early 30. He finished his existence inside a cell in 1957. Investigation late attracts looks on Al Capone's criminal activities. In 1931, he is admitted guilty of tax avoidance and imprisoned for life and sentenced to death penalty. This massacre affects at the end as well as Moran as Capone and puts an end to the impressiveness of Chicago's mafia.
Chicago is a town full of surprise, overflowing with amazing things to see, hear, or savor. But in that environment, choices are tough to make, so you have to make some. In the next part, I will tell you my favorite.
The highest tower of Chicago, but also until 1996 the highest around the world, overtaken by the Twin Towers in Malaysia.
When the sky is clear, like not today, you can see 4 states: Illinois, Michigan, Indiana, and Wisconsin.
The tower is 442 meters high. As explained when you start to visit, it's 262 times Michael Jordan or 330 times Oprah Winfrey. Adults prices cost $19.50 and for a kid, $12.50. 360 degrees Chicago offers a good alternative or nice additions to the other tower. Because of its proximity with the Michigan Lake, the view might be different, most enjoyable for the eyes, some people said. On top of that, you don't have to pay the entry of $19 if you consume in a bar situated almost at the top of the building, 96th floor, which is between $8 and $16 for a drink, so less expensive than the entry ticket. Up to you to decide which tower is the worthiest. Next comes a very interesting question, not completely out of subject though. Who invented the deep dish pizza? In 1943 comes the invention of the deep dish pizza. Thick toppings prepared in deep dish. Name wasn't explicit enough. Two restaurants fight in the arena to determine who is the real inventor of that kind of pizza. Pizzeria Uno, we couldn't interview them, but these shots are talking for themselves. And Lou Malnati's, I asked one of the waiters there to know what she believed.
Who invented the deep dish pizza? Is that you or is that the Pizzeria Uno?
Is it me, you said?
I mean, in the restaurant.
This guy, actually. That guy.
So it's really clear that the deep dish pizza was invented.
Yes, in Chicago.
Okay. Perfect. Thank you.
Was that it?
Yeah,
Oh, that
that's
was
it.
really fast. Okay.
In conclusion, taste it. Don't be afraid, but we still don't have a clue about this. The second most biggest museum in the US. Somewhere pieces are exposed here. That will make paintings amateurs more than happy, especially the one who likes surrealism and impressionism. Right now we're in a room of Steinberg. We can see his work through graphics and also drawings that is done in the 70s. Most of all, museum that shows the importance of art for Chicago City. 300,000 of pieces exposed. In compare, Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York has over 2 million. Known pieces of art like Sunday Afternoon in the Island of La Grande Jatte by Sora, Nighthawks by Edward Hopper, American Gothic by Grant Hood, or The Old Guitarist by Picasso. So many mythical pieces and many incredible works of art to see. Our next step is to know if there are green spaces in Chicago. For a city, it's essential to possess at least one. It maintains a good balance of life, but also benefits for its inhabitants. Breathing good air by evacuating daily stress somewhere else. For me, a big city which doesn't have one is less interesting and doesn't take care of the people living in it. Now, about Chicago, I'm glad to point out not one, but 2 parks and no little at all. The first that we'll talk about is the Millennium Park. It's here that we can observe numerous sculptures and popular monuments whose the being shot in a lot of American movies, for instance The Vow, Transformers 3. This huge sculpture shaped into a silver drops capture buildings reflect or less unexpected things. Different type, different place, Crown Fountain. Fountain spitting water from Chicago's residents' mouth who accepted to being shot. During winter time, the fountain is taking a break. No water sink and faces are different. Other things unmissable at the Millennium Park, the Practical Pavilion, where you can assist to free concert, either jazz, blues, independent rock, or classical music. Depends on the night you're going to. Every night from June to August at 6:30 p.m. While you are at the Millennium Park, go deeper up in the map, nearly crawl to arrive at the Lurie Garden. This flowery paradise
contains over 222 different types of plants and more than 20 types of grass. And also, he won an award of Excellence in General Design, American Society of Landscapes Architects. Besides, this garden is crossed by a river, so perfect to find some freshness and put your feet into the water.
Like the Willis Tower, a competitor to the Millennium Park, Lincoln Park. Lincoln Park, further away from the center than Millennium, is extending on 485 hectares down the Michigan Lake.
I'm your mama, I'm your daddy, I'm that nigga in the alley. I'm your doctor when in need, want some coke, have some weed, you know me.
Then, try to remember that you're still in Chicago and visit the zoo, available inside the park, completely free, which is cool for the US in general. To conclude in this part, one last stop from the Lincoln Conservatory. Plant species there are from all over the world, a way to find another Lurie garden in that park, we can say. If the clock isn't ticking, doing both of the parks seems to be the perfect deal. Now let's head to a very riveting place, the Navy Pier.
In 1916, the pier served as port, training camp for navies, university campus or convention center. Nowadays, this is more a place to have fun, and against all expectation, this is the most visited place in all Chicago with 8 million tourists per year, which is huge.
Why is that so popular? It's likely because of attractions that you can be part of. IMAX Cinema, merry-go-round, theaters, Chicago Shakespeare Theater, concerts, Big Wheel as observation point, but mostly it's amazing view on the lake and summer fireworks every Wednesday 9:15 and Saturday at 10:15 p.m. Everything is gathered here in one place for tourists and locals to find when the night comes, a place that they can stay for a while. Speaking of a place that brings back crowds, Chicago could make you discover another one, the Second City. Chicago is the birthplace of improvisation theater, where it was born. One of these theaters that contributed to that is located in Lincoln Park, Old Town, and it's called the Second City. This theater has paraded many great names: Bill Murray, Mike Myers, Steve Carell, and Bob Odenkirk. Now let's make the pros and cons of Chicago, or what I like the most and what seems to be disturbing. I start with the advantage. You will need money in the United States because in general it's expensive, especially in big cities. But with Chicago, many visits are free, including concerts, which is, you can't deny, very cool. There is something with this town, an aura emanates from it. I don't know how to explain, but there is definitely something about Chicago. Then, transports makes it possible to circle as much in the center as in the outskirts. Turns out quite useful to look out for low-budget apartment that connects to the center. And less, I admit having a hard time finding something negative with regard to Chicago. Except that, what is that? Dog's owner cannot register with their dogs and practice yoga? What would it be in the future? Basketball? Or fencing? Yeah, let's go! 1 hour with Mr. Shitu! Anyway, I get carried away.
I hope you like me wonder. If yes, green thumb up. If no, opt for the wet one. Fortunately, that can happen. Adieu to all of you and a rage Chicago Bull kiss punch of wanderings. For the experts, try to find the atypical place where I am. And now, it's your time to share a wonder. See you later, everybody!